Happy Monday, campers. I hope you're going well wherever you are in the country. It's Andy here with another one of the Professional Human series, proudly supported by Anywhere Auctions. Thank you to the Anywhere Auctions crew for supporting us throughout this show. We really appreciate it. And they are an amazing platform, gang, so get on board. Team, how are we doing? How was the weekend? How is everyone faring? It was a really interesting weekend for me in auction land. Lots of sold priors, which was first bit of indication that maybe some agents are getting a bit too nervous, a bit too concerned about whether they're going to actually get the outcome on auction day and hedging their bets on a private sale instead beforehand, which is... yeah, that's the first sign of some real, some real momentum shifts. If you don't play your cards right, if you keep sort of falling into that trap of just going for the offer beforehand, then maybe you're telling yourself and we're telling each other that the market is starting to make a small change. Having said that, though, still saw some incredible figures coming through, some immense figures. I mean, some of the numbers that I was calling on the weekend were just mental. They were really strong. But it is absolutely showing that we've got to make sure that we box a little bit more intelligently moving forward with our auction campaigns and on auction day. Reserve strategy plays a critical part, team. So please make sure that you've got yourselves really fighting fit and ready to go. Because unfortunately, these good markets, they tend to lead to some flabby agents kicking around. I'm saying metaphorically speaking, right? I mean, I can't talk at the minute. Still got plenty of COVID kilos to get rid of. But team, you've just got to make sure that this really hot market has left you feeling a little bit unfit when it comes to being nice and sharp around those collaborations with your vendors. It is Melbourne Cup Day tomorrow, so I haven't had a chance to have a look at the form. I don't know if any of you have. Please feel free to drop some tips in the comments section below. That would be fabulous. I mean, I'm shit at betting, so any help would be great. Team, I want to ask you how your weekend's gone out of 10. Like I said, I had some decent action and a couple of non-starters, though, I have to say. So let me know how you got on. I'd be interested to hear the outcomes from a number of people out there in the marketplace on the front line, around the country preferably as well, would be great. Team, quick question for you. What happens, right? What happens when we get busy? So I think it's safe to say right now that the vast majority of us are really busy. I'm talking on the sales side tonight, team, predominantly. But BDMs definitely come along for the ride with this one. What happens when we get busy? What happens when the market's really good? It's a pretty obvious answer that I know a whole bunch of you will be saying at the screen right now, and that is, team, the first thing that we tend to do is forget our prospecting. We forget our business pipeline. We forget to feed the beast. All right, we forget to feed the machine. We forget to fuel it up, right? And then what happens come 2022 is I hear a whole bunch of agents that hit the panic button around about the middle of Jan or late Jan because they're having to chase hard for listings and stock and whatnot, right? Because of the fact that we've just not had that level of consistency in our business pipeline moving forward throughout the course of the back end of almost any year, but especially this year, right? Especially this year, because we're trying so hard to make up for all the shit that we missed out on back there. And it's so easy. I'm not knocking anyone for this, right? It's so easy to just keep focusing on getting the transactions done that are right in front of us. So easy. Understand it, get it. I'd potentially be falling into the trap occasionally if I was on the front line as well. We're all human after all, yeah? But the one I want to talk about, though, team, is that this is generally what happens in every spring market. And a lot of it's to do with the language we use and the way that we talk about the spring market. But there's also part of our old school vernacular around prospecting and what have you that I feel we really need to create a little bit of a shift with. Because if we do, then it might make life a little bit easier for us all. Okay, it might make life a little bit easier for us all. So when it comes to feeding our pipeline, when it comes to getting prospecting done and all that sort of jazz, one of the most standard terms when it comes to trying to find more business is having that hunter mentality, right? Is going out and hunting and gathering for business. It's almost like a prehistoric caveman sort of analogy that's come from, let's be honest, it's come from quite an alpha old school sales environment, right? Now, with regard, when it comes to the hunter mentality, I got to be honest, I find it quite childish, to be perfectly frank. And there's a few reasons as to why, right? Few reasons as to why. First reason as to why this hunter mentality is quite a childish mentality is it's kind of like, it kind of reminds me of, small kids whenever they get a new toy. Yeah, reminds me of small kids whenever they get a new toy. It's really exciting for a really short period of time, like an opportunity to get a listing, or when you eventually do get a listing, you get all excited because you got it, you put it on the board, you feel like a hero and all the rest of it. But very soon after that, you kind of start looking away for your next bits of business and your next toy, right? That's kind of what comes up in my mind when I'm thinking around the old school way of how we try and motivate or drill this whole topic of prospecting. And for a lot of people nowadays, and this is one of the reasons why I'm saying it's a bit prehistoric, it's a little bit caveman, is it just simply doesn't resonate with the vast majority of operators that are on the front line today. It really doesn't. It may well work for, like I said, the alphas that are within the marketplace, but we've got to be straight about this team. If you look at your team, if you're a leader and you look at your team, how many of them are alphas now? You might get a couple. You might get 3 or 4. You might be a team that is full of alphas, in which case you're real top heavy. And those leaders that are in charge of those teams, I bet you every single day, you kind of wish at some stage you had a bit of a different flavor to your crew, because variety is the spice of life, team. But this hunter mentality, what it does, it kind of forces our players into worrying about what's happening right now at all times. Now, our professionalism should be taking care of the transactions that are right in front of us and around us and happening at this very moment in time. That's where the professionalism comes into play, our knowledge, our awareness, and so on and so forth, to be able to react to the plays as and when they come through. But the problem with it is, what this hunter mentality leads to is the shittest ride in the world, and which not one of us really tends to like being on, right? And that's that roller coaster of real estate. Because you're so focused on the here and the now, you're not giving yourself an opportunity to see what's coming ahead of you, to prepare yourself for that massive drop that's coming through, to see that that real sharp turn in the roller coaster that, if you don't prepare yourself and brace yourself for it, you're going to end up getting caught off guard and thrown to one side, and it's going to hurt, right? That's the big challenge that we really need to try and shift in our minds. It's that mentality shift, going from worrying so much about your next transaction. And that's what the hunter mentality really tends to do. Because if you think about it, right, back in caveman days, they would hunt out of necessity. They would hunt because they needed to feed themselves and their families, right? It was a necessity thing. They didn't do it for sport, right? It's not like now where, people wander around in their tweed jackets and the elbow pads and all the rest of it, and their stupid hats with the flappy things around their ears. They did it out of necessity. And the problem with that is, gang, if you have this hunter mentality within your real estate business, when it comes to getting future listings, future vendors, future sellers, then you will always be reactive to the game. You won't be proactive. You won't be able to prepare yourself. You will not have the foresight in order to make sure that your pipeline is fed nice and consistently. It's an instantaneous sort of reward-based mindset that unfortunately is probably one of the things that really does, one of the 4 or 5 key anchors that holds the industry down, if we're being straight. Yes, we love the thrill of the chase. The thrill of the chase is amazing, right? The adrenaline rush that I get at auctions, undeniable, yeah? And getting a deal, absolutely. Brilliant, wonderful. Definitely want to get a buzz when you're getting these sales through. But at the same time, team, the sale is just a small drop in what should be seen, in your mind, as a nice big ocean that is your real estate career, your financial freedom, and your future happiness. Each sale for you as a professional, and I'm not talking about, having it, I'm not talking about belittling the scale of the transaction for the consumer. That's a totally different conversation. I'm talking purely for the professionals. Each sale should be a momentary drop in the ocean that is our careers. And the problem is with the hunter mentality, all you're going to end up doing is trying to catch these drops as they come through instead of focusing on building that ocean. Yeah. So that's the first thing that I wanted to mention about making sure that we don't fall into the trap of just being hunters in this period of time. Because what's going to happen is you're going to end up starving come January, February, March. Business is going to get a little bit tougher to come by, in the sense that I do feel a turn on the way. And I feel that there's going to be a lot of sellers that are, the gap between sellers and buyers is growing. It really, really is. A whole bunch of you agreed with me when I mentioned it a week or two ago. And the challenge is going to be that whoever takes that listing on first is going to have a bit more of a time getting it done. So we've got to make sure, because at the minute, I'd be surprised if agencies aren't selling 100% of their stock, or like 95% or 90% of your stock. 5% or 10% might drift off to another agent, right? Tops, I would suggest, I would have thought. But as we go into January, February, March, that 5% of wastage might become 15 or 20 or 25 as that gap continues to grow. So you've got to make sure that you're getting more business coming through. You can't rely on every single piece of stock that you get being a banker of a deal. You can't rely on that. It's a very short-sighted way to go. So, team, what's the mentality shift that I need us to talk about and focus on a lot more? It's this farmer mentality that we have to have a much more thoughtful mindset around the year, how our year looks, how the next 12 months looks in terms of our crops, our business. You don't see a farmer, and probably the best person that I've heard that talks about farming in business and whatnot and wealth and stuff is Jim Rohn. It's an iconic talk that he gives at a conference years ago. It's incredible. If you want to see it, DM me and I'll send you the link to YouTube. There's either one big one or there's been split into a few different parts, but I'll send it through to you. And he says and it's quite true, a farmer doesn't sow seeds now and expect to be getting fed tomorrow. A farmer knows that whatever he sows now is what is likely to be produced in a few months' time. Yeah? Now, with a farmer, they need to make sure that they're always looking ahead. Why? Because they're anticipating condition changes. They're playing to the probability of, it being a hot summer, or it's going to be hotter in the summer, obviously. So I'm going to need to make sure I'm planting these seeds for that type of soil and all that sort of jazz. They're being way more attentive towards the potential conditions that they're likely to face in time when they are making their decisions now. Yeah? We need to be taking a hell of a lot more of this approach in our real estate businesses. We have to. Reason for that being is because if you think about it, if a farmer does knee-jerk reactions, they'll never fucking grow anything. they'll never grow anything. And the other thing that we've got to bear in mind, right, is the fact that a farmer knows that they are hedging their bets. That there's going to be X amount of rain over the course of a summer based on statistical data, historical facts, blah, 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 loads of stuff, right? And they will make sure that they account for that in terms of the volume of crops that they don't have grow efficiently and well. They'll always have a percentage of wastage within their crops, within their volume of seeds, so that they know that, right, if I plant 100 seeds, then I can anticipate, based on the weather conditions doing this and this, I'm probably likely to get about 60% of my seeds grow, or 70% of my seeds grow into fruit or whatever it is that I can then harvest and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. They always think ahead, and they're always thinking of worst case scenario as well. Unfortunately, they have to. The farming industry is about as hard as it gets, right? I reckon, and I actually might do this, if any of you, and in fact, I am going to reach out to a great guy that I know is in the fruit and veg game, and I'm actually going to get him to talk about how they anticipate things and their mentality around that. I think that would be a tremendous conversation. I'm definitely going to do that. Actually, I think that's going to be amazing, because we need to learn from them a lot more than what we're doing now. For a lot of you, you'd be saying, "Yeah, but we're putting our flyers out, and we're doing our email bulk emails and blah 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 blah." But you know as well as I do, that's not sowing a seed. Sowing a seed is making a human connection and advancing that conversation. It's making a human connection and giving it the right environment, the right conditions, the right soil to give it the best chance of growing into something that you can harvest down the track. So we need to switch this train of thought, this language around methodology and prospecting. We all need to be doing that. Any business worth their salt is always forecasting 3, 6, 12 months ahead. And every single individual salesperson, whether you like it or not, you need to be getting into this mentality. You need to be doing your homework around your forecasting, because the longer that you stay in this hunter necessity mentality, you will forever be a slave to the game. Forever. Because it's like anything, right? You can have a purple patch, but you need to make sure that you've got enough crops there to harvest for when it's not going so well. For when you're not on that dream run where you're listing every single appraisal that you're going to, right? When your form is off, you're going to need to make sure that you've done enough to be able to have a half decent harvest so that you don't starve. Take bears, for example, right? Before they go into hibernation for what, 6 months, I think it is. They spend the other 6 months preparing for that hibernation. That's all they do. And then they reap what they sow during that hibernation process, right? We've got to be thinking about this like in this way. We've got to be looking at our business or how nature operates. We think way too much about the immediate transaction. And a lot of it's brought around by this old school hunter mentality that is just making us think about the next thing instead of thinking about the next 10, 12, 15 things. I think one of the trendier analogies right now when it comes to hunter versus farmer is it's those that play checkers and those that play chess. You need to sort of work out which game you're playing, because if you're playing checkers, chances are you're going to be playing it for a long, long time. If you play chess, you're going to create opportunities to create genuine wealth for yourself, your businesses, and your families by thinking 3, 4, 5 moves ahead. You do get the odd sophisticated checkers player that will try and trap you with simple things and whatnot, but we all know that the best players in our industry are the ones that are playing chess and not checkers. They are always thinking 4, 5, 6, 7 moves ahead. And that's not just when it comes to the net, going through the process of getting someone from initial contact to listing to sold. It's that long-term business mentality, right? If I put this, and this into place, then in 4, 5, 6 months, I would expect to see an increase in efficiency when it comes to listings won by 7% or 10% or 12% or whatever the case may be. I was chatting to Sarah Bell, who the mother of Rita, earlier today for the Century 21 and Better Homes and Gardens Network for a competition that we're running through the month of November. And the reason why we're running it through the month of November is because of the fact that this is probably the biggest time for people to forget about the future and focus purely on the present. If you've been in the game, and I will include, last 12 months, I think it's still relevant. You need to have a think about when January rolled around and we were getting towards the middle of January and you're slowly getting yourself back in the game. Some people didn't stop, but for a lot of you, you gave yourselves a break, which is understandable. How many of you had a moment either at your desk or at your laptop and was like, right, where am I going to get this year's business from? I reckon it'd be a high percentage. I reckon 70, 80% of professionals in this space, in the sales side, will have that thought at some point in the middle of January. If you are one of those people, heed what I'm talking about tonight. Because it's not a nice feeling to not know where your next meal's coming from. And then you will start to act out of necessity. That is a vicious circle you don't want to be involved with. Now, I know that things are super busy right now. I get that, right? But that's where you've got to start boxing a little bit more intelligently around bits of technology and so on and so forth. How are you qualifying, your potential contacts, potential buyers, potential sellers, all those sorts of things? How can you create greater efficiency now so that you can feed yourselves come January, February, March? Hunter mentality versus farmer mentality. Checkers or chess. Work out which one you are. And if I were you, I'd start reading up on this chess game because that is where the winners play. All right, team. Stay safe, healthy, and happy on this wonderful Monday night. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you on Wednesday. I'm going to go catch up with that farmer now. I'm going to get him on this show. I reckon that'll be a ripper conversation. All right, team. Take care. Speak to you soon.